car's gonna get run over. Oh!
Ma'am, get out of the car!
It was amazing, guys. Just dancing to Amapiano and
Looking back, is this really how we want to move forward? Our drinking choices have more consequences than ever before. In between a drink and a better tomorrow is a choice.
Our choices around alcohol have been a major theme to the COVID-19 lockdown. When our choices were taken away through the alcohol ban, many people reacted strongly, some saying that we should have the right to make the decision for ourselves. And then others went as far as to call for the ban to be made permanent. But what does choice really mean? What does it mean? Do we have the right to it if we abuse it? And how much of our drinking, how much of that habit has just become unthinking habit? And what, if anything, will get us to make a different decision, a different choice? And so this afternoon, we really want to delve into some of these topics, some of these relevant conversations for the time that we find ourselves in. And we've been driving this conversation on social media and hoping that today you'll participate by adding comments and asking your questions as part of this discussion. I've got a few famous faces joining me for this conversation. They've been instrumental in driving this conversation leading up to today. And first up, I have DJ Sabi. Welcome, Sabi. I have Mpumi, Waras, as well as Amaza. They form the panel for this afternoon. Hello, everybody. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
I hope you're ready. They're unmuted and ready for us to get this conversation started. I have a couple of rules, of course, and the most important one is that you be open to confronting your perspectives around our choices when it comes to alcohol consumption. We want you to leave us comments. Use the hashtag Aware.org.za. So let's get this started. You're ready, right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want us to get real. I want us to have a really authentic and true conversation about our experience with alcohol and our choices around why we drink. So, do you think that we really consider our choices around how we drink?
Hi guys. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, and also want to say good. What time is it? Good morning to all the people watching this on Facebook. I'm Amaza from INBTWN FM. First of all, Azania, I think when we talk about behavior and how people do things, sometimes people, they like to feel attacked because I think it's a very sensitive issue. So I would like to say, taking part in this discussion, I'm not saying that I know more than anybody else or I'm better than anybody else, but it's just sharing information and my life experiences, that I got through discussions like this and, just talking and observing how people do things. To answer your question, we like to shift blame. People would, look for anything and everything to make sure that, they shift blame. We don't want to take responsibility for our actions. And when it comes to alcohol, I don't think there's a problem with alcohol. The problem is our uncontrolled intake of alcohol.
Yeah.
That's why we don't want to take responsibility. Because would always say, no, I wouldn't necessarily do that. It's because I was drunk or whatever, And somebody told me that, whatever you say when you are drunk, it's something that you've always wanted to say, but you didn't have guts enough to say it up until you were not sober. So people, they like excuses. But the truth is, we do not drink to have fun. We drink to get drunk. I think that's the problem. Most people, they don't even know their limit when it comes to alcohol intake. In fact, they don't even care. Because that after 4 beers, after 4 shots, you start to lose concentration and you start walking sideways. But people, they're not interested in that. People, they're interested in finishing the bottle.
Yeah.
And in fact, they drink up until they can't remember anything. And that's where the problem starts, when you can't remember, because it means that you don't have control over your actions anymore.
No, I think a lot of us can relate to the picture that you've just painted, right? But what I'm hearing from you, Amaza, is that we're not cognizant of the choice.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, people fall more on making excuses, but not really focusing
Yeah.
on the choice that they have in that moment. But Sabelo, what are your thoughts on this issue of choice and the fact that we don't really consider the choices that we have?
Oh, so when you said Sabelo, that's when it hit me. Oh, that's me. Look, I think your choice is calendly, you know, and I'm talking this from my own experience. It's kind of thing we always like to shift the blame and say media plays a big role when it comes to us making a decision, which is Puzani, the reasons why we drink, and how do we even get to a point where we have access to alcohol. The first time I was introduced to alcohol was actually by my uncle. He's 4 years of age. And how I know this because the story he tells a lot, that he gave me my first beer at the age of 4, and it was just so funny how I ended up hiding in the cupboards. So it was a joke in the house until you grow up and you realize that no, actually it's a bad decision, and you become a father, and that's the stage where I'm at right now, where you're like, I do consume alcohol, but I can't expose it to my child because I saw what it did to me. You know, I saw what my mom had to go through every Friday, which was the closest tavern. So I think sometimes I'm at decisions, we know very well. Some of us, the older you get, you start realizing with after 4 beers, as Amaza said, with I can't handle that. But peer pressure, you know, you're trying to please your friends, you're trying to impress people who generally probably won't even come to your funeral. And that happens a lot, especially in the urban space and within my target market, the people I communicate with on the radio, where so many young people are making choices to please other people, and they forget that they are the ones who are going to suffer in the end, where you might get arrested. None of the people you were trying to impress are going to bail you out. You might lose your life. And none of the people that you were trying to impress will be there to let your parents know that you have passed away. So there's so many choices that people take to please the next person, but you forget to look at the end of the day, it's your life that you're putting at risk. And I think those are some of the things we need to focus on to ensure what someone understand. Yes, you're trying to drink, but what's your reason behind the drink that you're having right now? Because I've realized that some people drink just to forget the troubles and the pain that they're going through at that present moment. But as soon as you're sober, you still have to face the problems that you're going through. And probably those are some of the things we need to also unpack. The reasons why abantu baphuza. You have a choice, but what's your reason that led to you making that decision behind the drink that you decided to serve?
Oh, Sabi, you've said such a mouthful, and we're actually going to unpick some of the things that you've mentioned, right? As we go along in the conversation. I'm still hearing it external, you know, that it's externalized peer pressure, other people. And then we have to, hopefully in the course of this conversation, go back to our individual choices. But Mpumi, I see you were nodding away quite a lot, clearly in agreement with what Sabi was saying. What struck you the most about this question of simply not exercising the choice that we have? And what's also come up from what Amaza and Sabi were saying is this question of binge drinking. You know, do you have experience with binge drinking, and were there consequences after that?
Morning, Azza. Hi, guys. So I'm laughing because anyone who's tuned in, who knows me, might have the assumption that I don't drink. I don't know. It must be the head wrap that is always around my head. I don't know. But what comes up for me, I think when you said, bring it closer to home, I realized that I have a fear of alcohol. And the fear comes from what Amaza mentioned, that the reasons, that you have to drink to get drunk. And so the assumption that she probably doesn't drink is because you have not seen her, wasted, or then people want to assume that you don't drink because maybe our reasons for drinking are, unless you're drunk, you didn't really have a turn up or whatever. But what Sabelo said about it starting at home, I always feel uncomfortable when someone asks you, how gandawphuzi? Like, nobody will ever ask you, gandawphuzi coffee? How amanzi? But when it comes to alcohol specifically, people feel uncomfortable if you're not drinking. And I always wonder, like, but babes, if I'm not drinking, that means there's more for you. Why are you so concerned? Which makes me wonder, what are your reasons for drinking in the first place if you must go and campaign for everybody? Are you really drinking because you enjoy a nice glass of wine or your beer or whatever? Or must it be this asambeni sonke, akamatrogis, which makes me feel uncomfortable, and then I just kind of rebel. So I come from a family where it was more of a celebration drinking, so whether it was a braai, it's the 16th, or whatever the case may be, it was always centered around a celebration of some sort. Again, you will have the odd uncle or aunt who must finish his talk because ibhavli kwele. Like, again, it comes back to what is the reason behind? Angithi sonke sikhona, sonke siyanatha, sonke wena muntu uqede kungasaleli muntu.
But Mpumi, speak to the consequences of that. You speak about an uncle or aunt, family relative who you've observed drink irresponsibly. What was the impact of that? What were the consequences from irresponsible use of alcohol, from even as a child observing all of this playing out?
Asa, that question actually gave me the answer to maybe my fear of excessive alcohol consumption, because I've watched one uncle lose his job. I've watched one uncle literally tear the family apart because, there is no dustbin for a member. But the truth is, we're all split because where now when you reach the 6th or 7th bottle, you're going to spoil it for everyone. So a lot of conflicts in the family have erupted. Imagine now we're all gathered celebrating. You ruin the day for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one I remember who my dad, I hope he's not watching. He's not on Facebook. My dad literally beat up this one uncle, and I'm not condoning any violence, but we're in mourning, and because he got drunk, I guess to numb his pain or his loss, he just got rowdy. That room labo koko bahleli khona ematrasini, where you thinking kunesizotha, you would respect this situation. But he got so wasted and he waltzed in there swearing, and again, it just, moved everybody's attention, and it got violent because he had to be physically removed from that, and that builds onto other conflicts. So leading up to this conversation, just today I was chatting to a colleague, two colleagues in fact, who have both gone through an experience where they ended up losing their jobs because of alcohol. And I'm talking colleagues from, the SABC, Sabi, one was from Kakasi. So these are industry people. And I can hear the guys talking about regretting the decisions they made, or the choices rather they made ahead of that one fateful day. It's a habit, it's a lifestyle, you get away with it, we talk about it, it's cool, it's funny, until that one fateful day. One of the colleagues has since, completely quit alcohol.
Okay.
And but the other says, even in spite of that experience, he still catches himself, in moments of ish, that was close. So
Well,
I
Mpumi,
wish we
you
could
talk
come
about
up with
lifestyle
answers after this session.
Exactly. And we'll explore the in-between lifestyle, this moderation, consuming alcohol in moderation and responsibly. But Warwick, let me come to you. DJ Waras, I really enjoyed
I
your
hope I'm not the
feedback.
one from Kakasi that Mpumi was talking about.
All right. You out yourself. Go
Maybe I
ahead.
should
Go
phone my
ahead.
boss.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed your feedback. You, when we started this conversation on social media, really about binge drinking and the kind of consequences in society as they play out. I shared a story as well on Instagram about when I was younger, went out with friends the one time, and when I got back, I parked the car in such a way that it caused the gate to fall, and my mom in her nightgown had to come out and help me lift this gate off the car, and it was hugely embarrassing, of course. But the reality is that we have to live with regret. If we are to bring it back to the individual about the consequences of binge drinking, there's this element of regret and shame that if we don't drink responsibly, we're likely to live with for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when making choices, they forget that the choices that we make need to be responsible ones for many reasons. And you know, if you become a person who just makes these choices irresponsibly, like Sabi mentioned, because of peer pressure, or because somebody else said that you must make it, or like Amaza mentioned, because we're having fun, I don't want to spoil this good time, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this and make this decision. It's because when it comes to alcohol, you need to be cognizant of the fact that those 6 beers for me might be fine, and I might be completely fine after 6 beers. But 6 beers for Sabi, for example, might be way beyond Sabi's limit. So you need to be responsible in your drinking by, first of all, establishing what are your limits. You know, and you might be judged by those other people to say, let's drink this 24 beers here, we have to finish them now. You can be that voice of reason, and you can be that positive influence to say, no, guys, 4 is what I'm stopping on, because I know my limit, and I know that my limit is 4. Even if your limit is perhaps 8, because it's a two-way street, this peer pressure thing. You can also peer pressure people positively. It's not only negatively that you have to pressure people. You can pressure your friends positively to say, guys, but why are we doing this? You know, I think Mbumi also mentioned about, you know, something that happens at family functions. And I also come from a big family. And this family, there's many uncles and aunts, and they're all different. You know, like, so growing up around alcohol and growing up celebrating with alcohol, you know, when there's a funeral, it's not really a celebration. I suppose it's an after tears. Is an after tears a celebration? Or is it a mourning? At an after tears, I've always marveled at how much people drink at an after tears. And the excuse they use is, no, so-and-so shonile. So I have to drown my sorrows. And anytime you abuse alcohol, or anytime you drink irresponsibly, the choices that you make are going to be influenced by how drunk you are. And then that regret element comes in, because tomorrow that person is still dead. So you haven't changed anything. You understand? It's not like I've drowned my sorrows and now I feel better because you still need to be responsible at all times as an individual. And then you as an individual, by your responsible choices, can influence the collective, starting small with your family, with your friends, with your small groups of people. Because, you know, the circumstances that you make the choice to drink under don't change after you've drank. And the spoken word can never be unspoken. So if you offend somebody with something you say when you're drunk, that person is going to remember what you said, and the when you're drunk excuse is not going to suffice.
Exactly.
And if you perform any action that you can't take back, I mean, actions one, the done deed can't be undone either.
Yes.
You can't take it back.
Now, let's talk about consequences then, because there are people who will abuse alcohol and the repercussions are very, very real. But is it worth the many then losing their right to choose in order to protect those who drink irresponsibly?
Look, on that point, something I noticed about, well, in this COVID-19 period is that, you know, it started with toilet paper. Remember the toilet paper rush? Everybody went and bought toilet paper because they said toilet paper is going to get finished. Then when they announced on level 3 that alcohol sales are opening again, the queues on that Monday for alcohol were ridiculous. Because people felt like, I have to go and stockpile alcohol because what if the government closes it again? Or because we haven't been drinking for 4 weeks, I have to now go and stockpile this alcohol because I have to catch up for the 4 weeks. I don't know what the reasoning was. But this panic was created, and we saw the consequences of that panic. The number of trauma cases skyrocketed. The number of car accidents skyrocketed. The number of domestic violence cases that were opened and gender-based violence cases that were opened skyrocketed. So there's the correlation between the alcohol opening and people sort of binge buying and all of these negative consequences that had is clear. But I don't think that the majority should suffer because of the few bad apples. But where do we draw the line on that decision? You know, like if people are not going to behave responsibly as individuals, and then their individual choices affect a collective or affect other people, at some point the government is going to have to step in, because it's their responsibility to make sure that all citizens are protected. You know what I mean? And like, everybody has a right to go to hospital for whatever reason. Now imagine if I contract COVID-19 and there's no space for me in the hospital because this past weekend everybody was drunk and there's all these cases of trauma victims that come into the hospital because of alcohol on the weekend. I'm going to be hard done as a citizen. Now I lose my right to healthcare because of the irresponsible choices of other people.
Exactly.
So I think we've got to be careful about where do we draw the line where we say, not everybody should suffer as a result.
Yeah.
Can I just come in?
So, yeah,
Okay.
Amaza, let me hear from you on this one. What do you think of that? When some abuse, do you then decide based on that for the collective?
Yeah, in fact, I just want to touch on choices as well, and your story, about the gate. I don't know why it's difficult for us to make choices that work for us. Every time we choose, we always make choices that make other people happy. I don't know why that is. Can I just share a story about consequences as well? I think it was last year or 2 years ago, after the radio awards, we won Station of the Year. And we had a big party at the station, celebrating that. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're still there. Go ahead, Amaz.
Oh, okay.
You're still there?
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So we were celebrating this award, Station of the Year and whatnot. And alcohol was there, everything was there. This is personal. So we're having fun, excitement and everything. Now, not knowing your limit, just going on and on and on and on, and you go hard. Things were said, we did things. Now we have Monday where we have to come back to work.
Yeah.
You don't remember what happened, you don't remember what you did. And no one was stopping anyone. We were just having fun, and no one wants to take responsibility for anyone. Now we have to come back Monday and face the same people that we were saying things to, your colleagues, you were saying things to, and you were doing things. So it was quite embarrassing. So I think, sometimes people, they learn from their mistakes, are fortunate enough, you're able to learn from your mistakes. And then there are those who learn from other people's mistakes, and then there are those who are not even fortunate enough to learn from anyone's mistakes.
Including their own.
Including their own, yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, as you say, this was, for me, it was a long, long time ago. I was much younger, but over the years, of course, you get to see how certain people...
Don't lie, Azza.
Listen here, listen here. But the thing is... But the thing is, there are people, as Amaza was saying, who simply don't take that on board and start to adapt and change their behaviors, right?
Yeah.
And they go on to repeat the same behavior over and over again, in spite of the many consequences. They've left a trail of lots of consequences, broken relationships, perhaps even an arrest. You just never know, just a trail of consequences. But in your view, what would it take for someone? What do you think would help someone make better choices? Now we have to bring it back to us as individuals. The government can only do so much.
Yeah.
Education programs and intervention programs can only do so much. At the end of the day, when I get into my car, knowing that I'm going out with my friends, and the choice to drink and drive is a moment that I have to pause at and use that as an opportunity to make a different choice. And so what do you think it would take to get people to make a different choice? Sabi?
As you say, it just got me thinking that I don't think we've made the whole idea of rehabilitation a solid structure outside of prison being the final end. Because initially, ijele was there to rehabilitate you and for you to learn and for you to come out being a better person. And people immediately think of rehabilitation as just for drug addicts. But if you are consistently doing the same thing, when you're drunk, you become this monster, you become this kind of person, and you're consistently doing it back to back, it means there's a bigger problem. There's a root that needs to be brought on surface so we can fix it. So I think rehabilitation needs to be advocated, it needs to be put forward, and people who got issues need to be invited to come into these spaces so they can talk. You know, I think that AA is a space that some people have created as a joke. Go to AA, you know, and some people are embarrassed to go to such spaces. But I think we should be able to make these spaces cool because you're trying to make yourself a better person. Because if you are consistently creating the same mistakes every single day, and alcohol is the only way you feel will numb the pain, it means that you really need to deal with the issues that lead you to drink. Because there's nothing else in Kabanga. Because Kadesning as a Bantu, it's easy for us to have an opinion as to why your neighbor Puza, why uncle drinks the way he drinks. But if we are able to figure it out with what could be the problem with Maluma Puza, or it's when he lost his job, or it's when he lost to auntie, it means he never dealt with the pain after losing auntie. Why don't we put him to a corner, take him to a space where we can try and fix it so he can be able to move on with life? Yeah. And something what I said, which I think is a big, big issue in society, alcohol has just been seeded as this ingredient to make us forget. Oh, is that me?
We can still hear you.
The alcohol is just, oh, sorry. Alcohol has just been seeded in our society as you need it when it's celebration time. We need it makshoniwe. We even need it when it's kids' birthday parties. It's just needed everywhere, you know. And I think we need to fix that.
Does anybody else have thoughts on that, especially if you have a friend or if you've observed someone just take things too far? What do you think would make them do things differently?
Sorry, I missed that, Azania. Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm putting it out to the rest of the panel, Sabi. Yeah, Mpumi?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So with one of the colleagues, the one who actually just decided it's not for him at all, he lost one job, quit alcohol, and, you know, got his life back together, got another job, and then he started drinking again. But what he says, the reason why he stopped, he actually sat down and realized, I've gone through the cycle. And it was evaluating the loss over the fun, the few moments, which I don't necessarily think was a solution, you know, for me to say quitting altogether still questions the whole moderation and the whole self-restraint. You know, we can't say to everybody, quit. I'm looking at some of the comments here, and I think it's Donna LaRue who says it runs deeper deeper than just, you know, on an emotional level. And he Donna goes on to identify that some people have a serious problem, like some of the guys have mentioned. So you asked earlier,
like a dependency problem.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's deeper than just, you know, that moment. But you asked earlier, Azza, if the consequences should be for everyone because a few can't handle it. And I felt, maybe this might not be a popular response, but yes, maybe we should all be on lockdown with booze as well. If cigarettes are still banned, and everybody else talks about the dependency on that and the withdrawals that they're suffering. And maybe it's easy to shut down cigarettes because, you know, even non-smokers are subjected to secondhand smoke. We are also subjecting others with the choices we make around alcohol, whether it's the accident that was caused. You're subjecting others even in a more detrimental way that one could lose their life because you decided to take one too many. And so many families can, you know, talk about the problems that alcohol has caused because it does go down to the family. It also goes back to, I think, was it Amaza who spoke about how you were introduced to alcohol. So it's such a big societal problem that maybe we should have a shutdown for a period. If you look at the accidents reported this Easter, yes, I know it was travel restrictions. And then would really like to see government looking at the pattern, how has it impacted on our roads now that, there's a curfew on how long you can buy it? Yes, people were stockpiling and all that, but not everybody could afford that. Has it had sort of like a major impact?
Yes, but I must say, I don't know how much that solves the problem. I don't, I think that when you start to restrict or when you start to ban and all of that, it does not solve the problem of irresponsible consumption. I think irresponsible consumption and irresponsible use of alcohol needs to be tackled differently, because in the picture that Waras painted was that during level 5, we couldn't purchase alcohol, but the minute that you're able to purchase it, look at the behavior that we saw being demonstrated. So it actually doesn't solve the problem. We need to look at how to adopt different behaviors, how to shift our minds into making different and better choices, and demonstrate actually how moderate drinking, how responsible drinking actually looks like. And I think this is a question that we haven't shown people, or an image that we haven't shown people enough, to say that you can drink for enjoyment within limits responsibly, and not have to deal with the regret or the shame or the consequences of an accident that takes a trauma bed from a patient who needs it, or that diverts the police's efforts because now they have to come and sort out a house party that has gone wrong. So by solving that, we're able to solve even in the long term beyond COVID for society. So in my personal view, I don't think an outright ban is the way to go. But I think that we need to have conversations around, how do I make better choices? What does moderate drinking and responsible drinking look like? But what ideas come to mind when we talk about mindful, moderate, responsible drinking? Does it, what can we do? What does that look like, and how do we achieve it? Any thoughts, Waras?
Yeah, I think Azania, this thing I think it starts with us, having these discussions, because when you're with your friends, also we laugh about that one friend who was pub drunk. As Mkuzi, we don't come back and say, hey, Ndwana, you know what, you need to check your alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
We just laugh about it. Hey, Ndwana, hey, Izolo, you were out, yeah? In fact, we had to take you home, whatever. We don't say, Ndwana, Mthambi, you need to check your alcohol consumption. So I think it starts with us as friends, as families. And sikuzane without judging each other, but advisana on these alcohol issues, because we always wait up until something horrible happens, and then you realize that, you know what, maybe I need to just take a step back. So it's up to us, as families, as friends, to have these conversations. I know, sometimes it's not what you want to do, because they always feel attacked and judged, but we have to. We had a great time, Izolo, but when you didn't have a great time because you were not even there.
Yes. No, but even in how we do it. So if we're all sitting together and one person is chasing or drinking at a particularly rapid speed, and everybody else, we can all teach each other the culture around how to do it correctly, how to do it properly.
Thank you.
And you're spot on.
But
model that behavior for each other. Yeah?
I was going to say, the culture of celebration. If you think about the type of stuff that's celebrated in our communities, and I know, like me personally, in my family, you'll mention a particular family member, say John, then people will say, hey, John can drink. I was with him yesterday. Hey, we drank 3 bottles. And it's we celebrate drinking a lot as though it's like an achievement, like you're really good at something, you're good at drinking. That's something that I think needs to change. It's not an achievement to be able to consume copious amounts of alcohol and still be alive. That you haven't achieved anything. And I think that in a lot of our communities, kids grow up around that kind of talk, where it's like, so and so drank by himself XYZ number of bottles and he was still standing, or he still drove home. I don't think it's like, nobody sort of has those conversations at a level where it's like, yo, Amaza drinks too much. Like, did you see yesterday he drank 3 bottles by himself, and this is not cool. We need to have an intervention, and we need to speak to him because he's our family member. And exactly. We're not concerned. We celebrate the fact that this person is good at this particular thing. That needs to change. I think the other thing is, like the alcohol advertising comes under a lot of heat and a lot of pressure, where it's like, maybe if we advertise less or we advertise in certain times and kids don't see this and see that. I believe that alcohol advertising is actually very responsible. If you look at adverts for any alcohol, the people in those adverts are having a nice time. Nobody's drunk. They're on a boat. Nobody's falling around over themselves. Nobody's drinking excessively in alcohol adverts. It's sold to us as this thing to be enjoyed if you're having a good time or whatever the case may be. But for example, the advert that this live stream opened up with, the Aware.org ad, that shows the other side. That shows what happens when you go overboard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we need to see more of that because everybody can relate to that. I've seen it not on TV, not on adverts. I've seen it in front of me at clubs and in the industry that I'm in. I've also been exposed to a lot more people drinking because of the industry that I'm in. When I go to a club, again, we celebrate the guys that are on a table with 50 bottles. There's only 5 of them. They can't drink those 50 bottles. Yeah. It's just impossible. Yeah. But they buy the 50 bottles, and then that excess is celebrated. Like, those are the main guys because they're buying 50 bottles. So we need to just change our thinking around that. And I think, as a few of us mentioned, it starts with the individual, because you as an individual, you make the choice for yourself. And then by association, the people that you surround yourself with, be that positive voice, be that positive person, be that positive impact. To say, guys, this is nothing to be celebrated. 5 between the 4 of us. That is not the way that alcohol was even designed to be consumed. And there is plenty of information on the consequences of irresponsible drinking. I just think we need to get that out more to the, especially the communities that are hard hit by the social ills of alcohol. Yeah. Is that you've got to get the positive members in those communities turning into activists that say, no, Ubaba from XYZ, like what's next door, we are going to intervene on behalf of that family. Because sometimes it's hard for the family to intervene and speak to the elder in the family and say, hey, Baba, it's not cool. Because you can get, if you're a child, you can't speak to an adult like that. Yeah. If you're a woman, you can't speak to your husband like that. Those are the other challenges that exist in our communities. So the community needs to come together to come there and say, stop. We need to address this with you because it's not good, especially when they're sober. Because when people are sober, they know exactly what they've done. I don't think anybody is happy with being an abusive drunk or an excessive drinker, but they can't help themselves. Like Sabri mentioned, do we have enough program to rehabilitate people when they have gone too far? Are people aware that they've gone too far? Or do they just drink again to cover up the regret? Then the cycle starts and it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Well, we are nearing almost the end of our conversation. I'll come back to you in a moment, Sabelo, but I just want to remind everybody who's watching this live stream right now to add their comments, your questions, share your thoughts around how we can start to make different choices, because that's what it's about, making different choices around responsible drinking, turning that tide on being irresponsible. Sabelo, you wanted to add to that?
I'm on the other side of the coin right now with this lockdown, especially since we got to level 3, extended or before extended. There's some form of restriction that I am enjoying because I'm seeing what is now happening now. We come back from work, we go home. The fact that alcohol is only available Monday to Thursday, a part of me feels like that's a start. It's something that we need to explore and look into as to how people are now aware of the fact that on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, unless I'm at home. I think a part of me feels like it's better when you're at home, because you're not going to go to a pub and drink and then get into your car and drive. You know fully well what's clean. And if you go to some of the restaurants, if there's a controlled limit, that maybe alcohol is not sold after 8, after 7. We need to have some form of restriction. A part of me feels like maybe we need to be a little bit harsher so people understand how.
What about
how
clubs,
insane.
Sebi? Where are we going to work, my man?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, I see that, but I'm just saying, like, there's some positive gems that I think we can explore from this lockdown, because we see that if we have some form of restrictions, it works. Clubs are a totally different story. I just generally feel like maybe we need to explore abantu bangafiki emoto zabo, because if you're going to go to the club, you're obviously going to go back to your car. And this whole idea of good team, and guys do this, we'll say, what is our designated driver for now? We're going to go party. Then during the course of the night, there's one guy who's going to try to influence what I said, come on, I should dash, just So it's, as what I said, it's positive influence, but sometimes because you are now jealous of the fact that Waras is sober, Waras doesn't have any issues, Waras is fully aware of what's going on, you now want to influence Waras so Waras can feel the way you're feeling at that present moment, because you just want to have an excuse. Because you're scared that Waras might tell your wife what happened in the club. So there's certain things we need to explore and maybe take out from this lockdown that are positives, I think.
But remember, during lockdown, the other side of the coin is if people are drinking at home, and I think we've seen this in the numbers, is that the number of gender-based violence cases that were presented at the police station was astronomical. Because I think what lockdown or what COVID-19 has created is like a perfect storm. It's where, as government and as society, we're having to face a lot of problems that maybe we haven't done the most to address in the last however many years.
Yeah.
Now, we're stuck with these problems on top of COVID-19, on top of being stuck in maybe Nobaba, who was abusive when he came home from the Shabi. Like I saw a thing on Facebook, because we chatted about it on the radio show maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, but there was a Facebook status that somebody made that said, in my home, we're lucky if my father comes home number 4 or 5 because then he just goes straight and sleeps. Usually he comes home, his t-shirt is torn. It's like Ngati, he was in a fight or some disagreement. But then he gets home and he's so drunk and he's so tired, he just sleeps. Whereas now during lockdown, by 10 o'clock, because, he's obviously an alcoholic, but, the thing doesn't go into depth. But I think what it speaks to is that lockdown has created the situation where the living conditions that our communities find themselves under are not ideal. Now you're stuck in a small house. You're frustrated, so you drink because you're frustrated. You drink to excess because of this frustration. And then in my home, I don't drink at home. I haven't drank the whole of lockdown. But me and my girlfriend are here and my one son is here. And it's frustrating to be in this space with these people. So we get into arguments all the time, but we're not drunk when we get into them. So they are handled, we get over it, we love each other.
Okay.
Now, when you add alcohol to that mix, some people are really living under the worst possible conditions because of excessive alcohol consumption.
Yeah. Well, I do need
Yeah.
to wrap,
As I say,
but I'm
it's a
hoping that
social
all
ill
of
that's
us
just never been
can
addressed.
commit to carrying on the conversation, firstly, in our circles, wherever we find ourselves, in our circles of influence, and get more people to take that in-between pledge. It's about pausing to make a different choice, to assess the array of choices that we have, and then take the most responsible one for the outcome that we want in actual fact. So all of you who are going to be taking an in-between pledge, please say aye.
Aye.
There we go. So make sure you take that pledge. Please spread the word, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Amaza, Mpumi, Sabi, and Waras. It is going to continue on the social media network. So, of course, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I think what's been said, and just as to reinforce it, is that the best way for us to become better at moderate drinking is for us to have a relook at our behavior and also continue the conversation and challenge each other, challenge ourselves with these conversations to make better decisions around drinking. So let's continue to talk using the hashtag #AwareOfTomorrow and also follow Aware.org.za. Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
It's gonna get run over.
It was amazing, guys.
Looking back, is this really how we want to move forward? Our drinking choices have more consequences than ever before. In between a drink and a better tomorrow is a choice.